Hey everyone, Doug from Convology here. In today's video, we're going to take a walkthrough of ConvertBox, which is a messaging and lead gen and segmentation tool for your website. This video is going to be a companion to the write-up over on Convology.com, so if you're interested in checking that out for more details, the link will be in the description. Okay, so here we are in ConvertBox. I've set up my website and we're going to create a new ConvertBox so that we can walk through and see some of the features, some of the integrations and functionality. So the first thing I want to point out is the interface itself. It's really clean and I think it's beautiful. And you're going to see as we progress through and create some ConvertBoxes of our own, just how cool this interface actually is. So let's go ahead and title this. We'll just call it test. And when you create a ConvertBox, you need to choose a group. So think of a group like a folder. This is where we group together different ConvertBoxes. I think the best strategy for this is to group them based on objectives. So like if I was going to make a section for my consulting or my coaching, I would have a consulting or coaching group, and any ConvertBox that I created for those purposes would go inside of there. So for this one, let's just go ahead and choose segments. I think that'll work fine. And we're going to select our type. So now this is pretty standard. We have the sticky bar, the callout modal, which is basically a little slide in from the bottom right, the center modal, which is just a fancy way of saying lightbox. People mistakenly call them pop-ups, and the full page. So for this one, I really like the callout modal. I've been using this a lot lately, and I found that the conversion rates are way higher than the center modal because people tend to dismiss that out of hand. It comes up on their screen and they're like, get the heck out of here, so they close it. But the callout modal has been really, really cool lately. Before we click that though and we select the callout modal, let's look at the embedded option. So the embedded option allows you to take a ConvertBox and embed it anywhere in your content where you can embed something like HTML, JavaScript, stuff like that. So again, that's probably a good opportunity to point out that ConvertBox is not a WordPress plugin. A lot of the stuff we talk about here at Convology is for WordPress, but this will work on any website. So let's go back to overlay and choose the callout modal. And the first thing they present you with are a bunch of different templates. Just like the interface, I actually think their templates are beautiful. I think they're really, really good. I was really impressed to see that I could probably take any of these templates and accomplish what I want to do. So one of the ones I've been using a lot lately is the video message. I think that works really well if you create messages for your content. The other one that I like is the segmentation option. I like this one just because, I mean, it's really simple, right? There's a title, some text and buttons. Maybe all the time it saves you is adding those manually, but I just like the way that looks. And the other one is the lead gen. So for this one, let's go ahead and choose lead gen because I think that'd be a good starting point. And now here we go. This is the interface where we build our ConvertBox. I think that's what they're called, ConvertBoxes. Maybe just boxes. I'll keep calling them ConvertBoxes. So one thing that I had to figure out when I was first getting used to this tool, and I've only been using it for about 2 weeks, is when you click on the ConvertBox itself, right? You see that where I basically got to the point where it said edit background and layout. By clicking on that, I was able to bring up the options here on the left-hand side to position it on the left or the right. I don't think there's a right answer, but maybe it's because I'm right-handed. I like the right-hand side. So the first thing I do is I always change it to the right. Maybe the left would work better because it's more disruptive. I don't know. So I'm going to put it on the right just because that's what I like. And from here, we can click close in the upper left. And this is really where all the magic happens. This left-hand side here is your panel where you're going to pull out all of your I guess, elements, right? Or widgets, whatever you want to call these. I'm going to call them elements, I guess, because that's what they're called right there. Duh. So let's walk through this, right? We have text, buttons, videos, images, timers. We can put a form. I think there's one already in there, which is why it's grayed out. HTML, that's pretty cool. We can put scripts in there, fire them off whenever we want. We can put dividers and progress bars. So pretty simple stuff. I think it's worth mentioning that, and I have more of this in my write-up here, ConvertBox is a SaaS service. It's a software as a service. So you're logging into their platform and you're building it. So they're going to restrict you on the level of customization that you're going to have. I think that for 99% of the people, this is all you need. But if you're looking for way more customization on the way something looks, the layout, maybe how big it is, things like that, ConvertBox is probably not for you. But for me, this checks this checks maybe 8 or 9 out of 10 boxes for me. So when we get to some of the more specific details on why I'm using ConvertBox in my businesses, I think you'll understand why you can look past some of these very minor deficiencies in design for the functionality. Okay, so let's make a few more tweaks to this so that we can proceed to some of the other options here. So for me, pink is not my brand color, so I'm going to change this to maybe something a little bit more blue, right? I like blue. And one thing I haven't figured out yet, and again, guys, we're just checking this out together. I don't or haven't been able to find where to change all the colors at once for like a theme. So that would be a cool feature. If I could just like click a button and make all the pink turn to blue, I'd like that. But for now, we'll just click on the elements themselves and change the colors. Because there's not a lot to customize, that wasn't too bad. So let's change this picture out. I don't necessarily love that one. Let's maybe upload our own image here. So I've done a few of these already. I don't know. Let's say I was building something for Thrive Quiz Builder. That looks terrible. We'll remove that. Let's just say I was going with a video. See what happens there. Look at that. The push of a button, I've turned this into the other template. Anyway, so let's just say this is a video that comes up with me on there talking about my free training course. We'll use this text because it's done, and we can take a look at this form now. So by default, it comes with an email option, and let's take a look at the form fields. So here we go. Here's where we can get control of what our forms can say or ask for. We have email, and to edit that, it seems pretty easy. You click the edit button and say, I don't know, what is your email, or whatever you want to say. That was probably better the other way. But we can show as a text label above the field, which will move it outside of it or keep it inside. We can pre-fill it with a custom URL parameter, which I think is cool. If you pass people from one page to another and you already have their email, you can pre-populate the field. It also works really well for email marketing providers. If you're sending somebody to a page from a link, you have the ability to pass those in. You can also pass their name usually. You can pre-fill it from a cookie value. Now that's an interesting one. I'm not a pro or expert on cookies, but if you know a way to set a cookie in somebody's browser, you could potentially pre-fill values in a form based on those cookies. That's something I'm going to play around with more because I think that has a lot of potential. And the last option here is to set a custom parameter name for redirect URL. So essentially, like if I wanted to pass the info that they fill out in this form, pass it on to the next page, maybe because they're filling out a more complex form, or because I want them to, I want to render something dynamically, this would be a good place to do that. For now, we're going to leave that. Now let's add another field. So here's what we have for options. First and last name, first, last. Actually, I don't think that's going to translate over the recording. So I'll just jump through it like this. So we have first and last name, first name, last name. You can ask for their phone number, their website, a text field, a hidden text field, right? That would be something you'd pass a parameter to with a URL variable, a query string. You have the dropdown, which would let you give them options to choose from. The checkbox, pretty standard stuff. A text field, so like give us like a message, right? For us, like a contact form. Radio selection, which is basically not a checkbox. They can choose multiple checkboxes. A radio is you choose one or the other. And that's it. Those are all of the options. So I think that's comprehensive enough for a contact form or a lead magnet form. So for us, I would just say I want first name and I want to make it required and add that field. And now what I can do is drag and drop these in place and click done, and my fields have automatically been updated. Now over here on the left-hand side, let's take a look at some of the customization options, because I think, again, this goes back to the limitations here. We can change the font family, we can change the button text color, and we can change the size of the form from small, medium, or large. Medium looks best, I think. But that's really it. We don't really have a whole lot more control over this form. We can edit vertical spacing if we wanted to increase the vertical spacing between the form and something else. But that's really it. So again, customizations are a little thin. Okay, so what we can do is now we can take a look at what are called form actions. This is essentially what happens when this form is submitted. So when a visitor submits this form, we have a couple options. We can go to the next step. That would be like a two-step or multi-step opt-in form. Those have really good conversion rates. We can jump to a different step, so we can build a really complex multi-step form. We can redirect them to a URL. That's very traditional. Someone fills this out, they go to a thank you page, thanking them for their opt-in, telling them what's going to happen next. We can close the convert box. Basically, I don't know why you would necessarily do that. I suppose there are options in which case that makes sense. Can't think of any off the top of my head. I guess unless you were going to fire a script that changed something on the page. I don't know. But you could also send integrations. So let's choose, go to next step, for example, and then send the data to an integration. So we can click on this, and this is where we choose our integrations. So essentially, right now, I just have webhooks. I haven't connected my ConvertKit account or my SendFox account or my CRM or any of those things to ConvertBox for this account. And that's a good time to bring up how integrations work. So I have ConvertBox Pro. It was a small little add-on that you can buy at the time of checkout, and that does a couple of things. It increases the number of views per month that you can have. It also gives you the ability, when you upgrade to the Pro version, to get more websites. So on the Pro version, I think you have like 50 websites you can connect, and each website has its own set of integrations. So for example, this site only has the webhook integration because I haven't connected my email service providers. But on my other accounts, the ones I run for clients, the other websites I have on my account, I've integrated MailChimp, ConvertKit, I've integrated SendFox with HTML forms because there's no API integration yet. And I've integrated a couple other of the well-known platforms. Now, if I had integrated those platforms, it would be here under the integration. And at this point, I could send that data to my email service provider. I would then get options to add them to a particular list and things like that. So let's go ahead and just hit cancel there because we don't necessarily need to do anything more, and click close. Close that as well. Now, the last thing I want to point out here, or maybe second to last thing, is the steps option. Under steps, this is where you can choose to create a multi-step opt-in form where someone can click a button or upon submission of their form, like I showed you earlier, go to the next step or go to a specific step on this opt-in. So let's say instead of a form here that I had a couple of buttons. I'm going to add 3 buttons. And let's say that this text said something like, and again, to edit the text, you just double click on it and you get all these little standard WYSIWYG text options. So I can say, what type of business are you? And maybe they were I don't know, I'm a solopreneur. Maybe I could say coach, consultant. Maybe this last one is e-commerce. I don't know, something like that. Terrible options, but you get the idea. What I can do is I can create more steps in my form. So let's say I make another step, and let's call this one e-commerce. So now with the click of a button, I can jump over to the step of this form that is entirely dedicated to e-commerce. And I can do the same thing I did before. I could add an image or a video. So let's say the person told me that they are an e-commerce business. I could drag a video in here of me talking all about e-commerce businesses. I could drop in some text where I talk about, I don't know, maybe a particular opt-in that I had for them, or a course or some content or something on my website that was relevant to people that had that kind of business. And then I can maybe add a button. So I can then come back here and repeat that same process for all the different buttons and steps and have a customized second step or perceivable second step for however they chose to segment themselves. And what's really cool is when they get to this step, I can then have them submit a form, right? So if I came in here and I dragged in form, I can have a form in here that if I go back to the first step, or if I add a new step, let's say that this one was coach, right, for the coach business, I can come to this and I can add another form. And I can choose to give each of these forms in the different steps different integrations so that the form that gets filled out for e-commerce sends data and tags people as an e-commerce business. And the form they fill out if they were a coach does something different. So that's really powerful, allowing your users to self-segment. And I think ConvertBox does a really, really good job of just making this super simple. I mean, it really is just a matter of adding a new step, clicking back to elements, and designing it however you like. All right, not to let this drag on too much longer, but we have two more things I want to quickly show. The first one, if you jump back to the first step here, is the mobile option. You get to see what this looks like on mobile. And let's say that you didn't love, I'm going to go back to desktop, click here. Let's say we didn't love the fact that we had this little, I guess it's like a profile icon. You can disable it or put it in the header, right? So get rid of that. Looks like it's a message from me, almost looks like a chat bot. Or we can say, I want it to be a different photo, or we can turn off the name, turn off the company name, or do whatever we want there. There's also ways to disable this entirely if you didn't want to have one. I kind of like it. I don't know. I kind of think it makes the whole thing stand out a little bit different, personalizes it, makes it look like it's coming from me. But what's really cool is we can choose whatever image that we want. And then once we're happy with it, we can then say, hey, you know what? I'd like to A/B test this. So I want to create another variation, and I want to add notes, and I want to create settings, and I want to split test it with cookies. I want to split test it with just diverting traffic. There's so many different options. So I think this is really powerful for somebody who wants to get really robust measurement and analytics to basically compare what's working better for their business. Okay, so that's all I'm going to touch on in the design aspect. Yeah, we didn't touch on timers. You know, you can set a timer here. You can choose evergreen, where it's basically going to be a different timer for everybody and they have to take action. There's the fixed date option, and there's all kinds of cool things you can do there. With whether or not you want to show stop showing the ConvertBox to somebody after the deadline, or if you want to restart the countdown the next time they come back, or redirect them to a URL and basically say, hey, when this hits 0, I'm going to send you to a page that says this offer was expired. So I think that's particularly cool. And you also have the ability to do a fixed date option. So those are neat. And then progress bars are just like those gimmicky things where if we did multiple steps, it would say, hey, you're 50% done, and you're 100% done, and you go to the next page. So again, that's really what I'm going to touch on in the design. If you look at their templates, you'll see that there are lots of options for things that you can do. Now, the next section is display. Under display, we have the option to choose when we want the ConvertBox to show. And this is, if you read the write-up on Convology that goes along with this video, this is where ConvertBox stands out, because so far, just being honest, nothing is really like revolutionary or amazing that would justify saying, you know what, if I already have a lead gen thing, why would I want to buy ConvertBox? If I didn't have one, maybe what you've seen so far is enough to convince you. But if you do have one, you're going to need a little bit more reason. And for me, this was it. It's the ability to target people with what they call intelligent rules. And the intelligent rules are essentially if a visitor has seen a page or hasn't seen a page, or if they're on my list, or if they're not on my list, or if they're tagged a certain way, or if they came from a different website. It's the ability to know about the user before choosing what to show or when to show them something. And for me, that's been huge for increasing conversion rates, because I'm able to get more granular with my segmentation, and I'm able to say, I only want to show a ConvertBox to somebody who went to my checkout page, didn't buy something, so they're not a customer, and this is their third time back to my page, right? I don't know many other tools like this that can do this level of integration, particularly with the email service providers as well. So that's what brought me on board with ConvertBox. So real quick, let's take a look at some of the triggers, right? The basic ones: time on page, scroll to a particular spot, period of no activity, page abandonment, also known as exit intent, or clicking a link on the page. That's what's going to trigger this ConvertBox. So for us, we can just say time on page 5 seconds, done. And then frequency, we can say, I want this to show 1 time per session. This is pretty standard stuff. If the person closes them a lot, you can suppress the frequency. And then location. So this is a cool display rule option. We can choose if the URL contains, I don't know, a word, or if the URL is an exact URL. And then you can add additional rules or exclude pages as well. So again, these are the simple display rules. and they're actually pretty good. Like these are more involved than most lead gen tools, but the targeting options are those intelligent rules I was talking about before. So if we wanted to show it to everybody, cool, leave that checked. If we wanted to target it to specific people, we click the target specific visitors, and here's where we start to add our conditional rules. So I'll just go through these real quick. They viewed a certain number of pages, more or less. They've made so many number of sessions to your website. That's crazy. More or less, or exactly a number of sessions. They're on a desktop, a mobile. They've visited a particular page. They've not visited a page. They've visited a particular page with a URL parameter, right? This is the data that you can pass along. That's super useful. They've a referring source, so basically they're from Facebook, YouTube, things like that. They can have locations, so like countries, for example. That's really cool, whether they're in or not in a particular country. And I like this one, has or has not seen a particular ConvertBox. So if I've showed somebody an offer before, I can show them a different offer or a different ConvertBox. That is awesome. And here, again, this is going to be awesome for people that have courses and membership sites, is logged into WordPress or is not logged into WordPress. Think about the options you have now to market in different ways to students or members and non-members. And then again with the cookie thing, I got to look more into that. I think that's pretty cool. And that's it. So you can see there's a ton of potential in the targeting options for ConvertBox. Now let's wrap up this quick walkthrough of ConvertBox by looking at the integrations that they have natively with the platform and a couple of options that you have if they don't. So they have pretty much all of the big name email marketing service providers. They have MailChimp, ConvertKit, Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign, which is great. Then they have some of the smaller ones, yet still very popular, like Moosend. And they have HubSpot, if you use that for your CRM, and Sendinblue, which is another pretty good one. And they also have an integration with Google Analytics, which sends these interactions with ConvertBox as events and lets you track those things, which is really helpful. And they also have the custom HTML form. And the custom HTML form is how you're going to integrate forms that are not supported natively with the API. So for example, SendFox, which is a great email service provider that's on a lifetime deal for just like $49. You can have up to 5,000 people on your list, one-time payment. To integrate that, you would do a custom HTML form where you set up a new integration here. You give the form a name. So for example, if I was doing a particular lead magnet, I could call this the name of the lead magnet, and maybe SendFox, then just paste in the HTML code from SendFox, and this would automatically work. It would send the data to SendFox, and SendFox would know what to do with it because it's the HTML form code directly from SendFox. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, this is a companion to the write-up that I have over on Convology.com, where you'll find a little bit more breakdown of some of the features and what's included, as well as my thoughts on how this stacks up against other providers like Thrive Leads, for example. And I also go into a couple real-world examples where I'm using ThriveBox to generate results like a 12.9% increase in sales and a 60% engagement on returning visitors, as well as how I was able to use one of these ConvertBoxes to entirely pay for my lifetime deal in just 2 weeks. So if you're interested in learning more about those, go ahead and head over to Convology.com and find the blog post for this video. The link will also be in the description. All right, that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or go ahead and leave a message at Convology.com. I'd be happy to help you out, happy to point you in the right direction and get you started.